Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Colin Nixon. We have now started Purdue Engineering's Daily Drop-in. If you could do me a favor and just confirm that you're able to hear me in the chat, that would be really grateful. Until then, I am also joined by three other engineering students here at Purdue. Thank you, Wake, who I will let introduce themselves, starting with Gabe.
Hi, everyone. My name is Gabe Segura. I'm a freshman. Wow, that's loud. Sorry, someone's racing by my street. Hi, my name is Gabe Segura. I'm a freshman in first year engineering with interest in going into industrial engineering. I'm also hoping to finish with getting my minor in computer science as well as getting a certificate in entrepreneurship. With regards to what I'm involved in around campus, I am part of a learning community called EPICS. I am also part of a professional business fraternity here on campus.
Hi, everybody. My name is Emily Severson. I am currently a junior here studying industrial engineering. I'm originally from Westfield, Indiana, which is about an hour away from Purdue. Here on campus, I am heavily involved in the Engineering Student Council, as well as a couple other organizations. I've had an on-campus job all 4 years of college, and then I've also had two internship experiences and am pursuing a minor in management and a certificate in entrepreneurship.
Hi, my name is Ilana Roth, and I'm a senior in mechanical engineering with a minor in Spanish. I've studied abroad twice, once for a summer and once for a semester, 3 different departments. I've done 2 internships, and on campus, I'm involved in the Mechanical Engineering Ambassadors as well as a dance company.
And to round it all out, again, my name is Colin Nixon. I'm a senior in computer engineering as well as a student advisor in the Office of Future Engineers. I've had the pleasure of completing 2 internships during my time at Purdue, as well as various extracurricular activities, both professional and social. And lastly, I've had the opportunity to live on campus all 4 years. So we have a myriad of examples and perspectives to answer any questions you guys might have. Feel free to either put the questions in the chat, or you're more than welcome to also call in. You will be able to accommodate either medium. Until then, if you guys don't have any questions, we're gonna kind of talk about our own personal experiences and the things that we've been able to pursue while as students at Purdue. Okay, so starting with Emily. How are you doing today?
I am doing well. It's Friday, but every day feels like the other days. So I guess it doesn't really mean that much that it's Friday, but happy Friday. I just wrapped up another kind of exam workload or exam season. I don't know. Just another round of exams. So I'm feeling pretty good that those are behind me now. Watch some online lectures. We're chilling. Things are going. I don't know. How's everyone else doing?
I'm doing well. I was telling my mom I had to do like a lot of lecture watching to kind of like catch up in front in preparation for like 3 tests I have back to back next week, because they were moved to accommodate learning from distance. So it's definitely been a busy day, couple past days. Going over to Gabe, kind of give your freshman experience, what it's been like so far, just coming from, out of state as well as being in the first year engineering program.
So it's definitely been a good change. Overall, I think I've really enjoyed my time, not only coming into Purdue, but also just because of the amount of stuff that I've been able to do since I was there. But it is definitely a big transition from going into college after finishing my senior year, and then like a semester and a half way of finishing that first year, coming back home and finishing my year here. It's helped me a lot with trying to understand time commitment and prioritizing what I need to accomplish. But I mean, I'm still human, so I still have to, like, a couple lectures that I have to catch up on. I have 2 exams next week, so got to prepare for that as well as some other things. So everything is starting to ramp up as if I was back on campus, and just being back at home is definitely a change in environment. But overall, it's been great. A lot of my professors have been very, very open to being able to change due dates and change lecture plans based off of everyone's availability. And because everyone is pretty much dealing with the same thing right now. So where sometimes technology won't work in our favor, we would get those assignments pushed back so everyone has an equal opportunity to be able to complete everything on time without getting their grade knocked down because they weren't able to finish an assignment because X, Y, and Z program just didn't want to work for them. In terms of the FYE curriculum, overall it's been pretty great. I don't really have any complaints with that, even when I'm back home. It is different, and there is quite a bit more work just because I'm not on campus, but it's still been pretty manageable.
Awesome. So if there aren't any current questions, maybe Wake, you have a question. Sorry for picking on you. But if you did have a question, definitely feel free to comment that in the group chat. If there aren't any current questions, I'm going to go ahead and start the conversation with an overview of first year engineering, since Gabriel kind of mentioned that. So in general, for those who are not aware, if you are interested in engineering at Purdue, you will be admitted into what is called the first year engineering, and that is our freshman experience, you could say, for all engineering majors, regardless of the major that they hope to hope to pursue. So whether your interest is whether your interest is mechanical engineering, computer engineering, industrial, biomedical, and so on, you have the opportunity to not only explore all those different majors, but also get a strong foundation, regardless of which one you want to pursue. And that is really the goal of first year engineering, is to provide students the ability to learn as much as they can regarding all 17 different majors so that they can make an informed decision within the spring semester, as well as strengthen their foundation in the foundational courses, math, physics, chemistry, as well as writing and speaking, and teach them how to be an engineer, teach them how to approach a problem, how to consider all of the stakeholders. So beginning with that first goal of first year engineering, students will have the opportunity to explore all 17 different majors by going to various informational sessions. Those different sessions will allow students to interact with current students, as well as gain information pertinent to their specific major. What classes will you be taking? What does the plan of study look like? Are internships viable? Who are some common employers of this major? As well as research opportunities and so on. The other way students can get exposed to a particular major is by going online and looking at the YouTube videos that each school has created in order to talk to freshmen about those specific majors. So I know now each program has a video that will be given to students once they come here as freshmen that will speak to each major in depth, again, talking about the courses, talking about the career opportunities, as well as research opportunities. I remember my freshman year, I went to an informational session for computer engineering, computer and electrical engineering and mechanical engineering, since those were the majors that I was considering. And it was presented by current students, ambassadors of those particular programs, or it was also presented by past alums, or alums rather, past students, as well as you might have the opportunity to interact with a faculty member. Moving to the second part of first year engineering, you'll be given the opportunity to take Calculus 1, Calculus 2, physics, chemistry, as well as being exposed to English and writing courses, and then a designated engineering class. Engineering class will have 4 different flavors. The most common flavor is designated as Engineering 131 and Engineering 132. The honors equivalent, or Goss Scholars, flavor of that first year engineering course is going to be designated as Engineering 161 and Engineering 162. The EPICS version is Engineering 133, and then there's a VIP version. So all of these flavors are ways that students can pursue the same goal, but in 4 different ways. So the most common way is Engineering 131, and that will be comprised of 2 classes, one in the first semester, one in the second semester, teaching students how to think like an engineer. How do you build mathematical models? How do you consider various stakeholders, as well as how do you work in a team? How do you manage time? How do you designate certain work to certain people in order to accomplish the same goal? So regardless of the major that you're going into, first year engineering is designed to give you the comfortability and introduction to engineering and how to approach any problem. What about you, Emily or Ilana? Do you guys have anything to add as far as what first year engineering is like, or key takeaways that you were able to gain from first year engineering?
I can add a quick little blurb about it. I initially was kind of hesitant about Purdue because of the first year engineering program, because I knew I wanted to do industrial engineering and I didn't really want to wait to get into industrial engineering. But once I was here, I found the first year engineering program super valuable, just because it reconfirmed that industrial engineering was a great fit of major for me. And I got to meet a lot of people outside of industrial engineering. And so I got to meet a lot of people who are now mechanical engineers or aerospace engineers and still gain those core skills. And so I think the first year engineering program is really valuable because you get to see, like, okay, what I actually want to do, like what my career goals are, they're possible through this major. And maybe it's the major you intended to go into, or maybe it's not. Both ways, it's really beneficial just to have that information and kind of know what all your options are before you make such a big decision, like what you want to do with the rest of your life. So I found it really valuable, even though I was initially hesitant about it. So yeah, that's just kind of my 2 cents on first year engineering.
Yeah, and on the flip side, I really liked Purdue because of the first year engineering program. I knew I wanted to do engineering, but wasn't sure exactly what major, and I'm pretty indecisive. So I knew that it would take me a while to figure that out, and I wanted a lot of information for that. So I really liked having the whole first year to figure that out, and I got to talk to so many people, both like faculty and staff and students who were currently in different majors, who helped kind of guide me through that decision. And I'm really happy with where I'm at right now, because I actually had no intention of being in mechanical engineering when I started. So it's not a decision I ever would have come to had I not had that program to kind of help me figure that out. And like Emily said, it is really nice to have classes with people from all different majors, which you will at some point potentially, but it is a little bit more siloed once you get into your major, because now as I'm in senior design and I've worked on other projects that extend beyond just my major knowledge. So it's nice to be able to have people to ask who have taken tons of classes and are really knowledgeable about certain subjects that I might not be.
I agree with Alana. I came in really liking the first year engineering program specifically because I was still deciding between three different engineering disciplines, being industrial, mechanical, and computer engineering. And honestly, even now, I'm still a little, I'm still haven't 100% decided, but the fact that I was able to have the first year engineering program to give me a bit more time to fully understand which one best fits my interests and for me to be like 95% sure I want to do industrial engineering as compared to like a 33% between the three majors. It's been really, really great. I'm coming into Purdue into my sophomore year next year, uh, more confident with my major, more confident that I'm going to want to stick with it. And I've seen that with a lot of people as well, not only the people in my class, but also people who have gone through the first year engineering program themselves. The first year engineering program is not only designed for you to be able to find what you're truly passionate about within engineering, but also to help mitigate the chance that you would want to say, okay, halfway through, I'm not a really big fan of this type of engineering discipline, so I'm going to switch to another one. And then a lot of those classes that don't initially transfer would just pretty much be almost wasted credits. So it helps also to just be able to graduate in 4 years because you're finishing your first year knowing what you want to do, and there's less of a chance that you might want to switch. So we got our first question. Are there any significant things about the dorm rooms that you wish you knew before being a freshman? So, um, not entirely. Purdue does a pretty good job with matching you with the type of dorm room that you're most interested in, especially for freshmen. The way that you would select your dorm rooms, you don't select which specific residence hall you want to live in, but rather what style of residence hall. So for me, I know that I wanted to have a double with AC, so I put that as my first choice, and triple with AC I think was my second. I don't remember, but so you'd rank them like that, and then generally people will get their first choice recommend option. However, there's a chance when some people would get the others. However, um, for me, I joined a learning community, and everyone, at least most of the majority of the learning communities that I'm aware of, will have a specific residence hall where they'll put everyone in that learning community, which is a fantastic way to already have a common interest with the people around you. Um, I've made a lot of friends uniquely through that. So, if anything, I would recommend looking into those LCs if there's any of them that are of interest to you, because they can change your the way that you're pretty much your living experience through your first year here at Purdue.
Yeah, just to add to that, when I was ranking housing choices, I actually put a double with no AC as my top choice. And so that's something that people kind of overlook, or they think that's kind of like weird that we don't have AC in some of the residence halls. But something that I think is important to know is that in a lot of those residence halls that don't have AC, they have a really great sense of community within them, because a lot of people will keep their doors open at the beginning of the year to let the air flow a little bit. And so people are always like in and out of each other's dorms and saying hi and like just making friends on your floor, things like that. So a lot of those non-air conditioned residence halls have some of the best communities. If you're not doing like a learning community and you just want to meet all the other people that happen to be on your floor. That was my experience freshman year, and I was in Owen Hall. So I really enjoyed my time. I would encourage you all not to write off those residence halls just because they don't have AC. It's really not that big a deal. It's not that hot during the school year for the majority of the year, because the majority of the time you're here, it's winter or fall. But yeah, that's something I think is important to know, that if you're looking to make a lot of friends that you're living near in your residence hall freshman year, the double with no AC is a really good option to do so.
And also, it's a good way to kind of save a little bit of money if you are looking to limit some cost. So great question, Wake. We appreciate it. Going on to the second question regarding electrical engineering and computer science. I would say there are technically two ways to do this. You could either do a major in one or a minor in one. So say, for example, you majored in electrical engineering and then you decided to minor in computer science. That is something that is highly recommended and something that a lot of students will end up pursuing. And then there is the second option, which I personally would advise against, and which would also be kind of hard, which is to double major in electrical engineering and computer science. So those are probably the those are probably the two only ways you could do it. And then the most likely and most advised option would to major in one and then minor in one other. Just to mention, if you are interested in electrical engineering as well as computer science, I don't know if you've done this, but computer engineering is a combination of a lot of those topics and skill sets. So you could also major in computer engineering and possibly minor in something else. With that, you cannot major in computer engineering and minor in computer science. Simply because what you would learn in the minor for computer science is not any different than what you would learn from the major in computer engineering. So hopefully that gives you some more perspective. If you want some more information, feel free to ask more questions about either of those topics or how to minor or how to choose which minor you want to do.
Quickly going back to Wade's question, for any significant things about the dorm rooms that I wish I knew, if you like space, I would definitely recommend lofting the bed. They do recommend that you do that regardless, but I didn't realize how useful that was in terms of just being able to have more walking room around the dorm until I was actually at college. So I definitely recommend that. A fridge and a microwave are very good things to have in your dorm. I have a couple friends who don't really use them, but I know me and my roommate, we use them pretty periodically. So if anything, that would be just my recommendation. Yeah.
And then we have another question regarding the course load for FYE. And do we still have free time for social activities? So I'll start with your first question and feel free to chime in, panelist. But as far as first year engineering, you will take, I would say, around 16 credits for both semesters, which is around 5 or 6 classes, depending on the credit breakup. And now I am about to post or link the first year engineering curriculum in the chat, and that'll give you a specific breakdown of what classes and what credit each class will be. But in general, I would say, as far as first year engineering, especially 16 credits, 5 or 6 classes each semester. And then as you progress, there are some programs that are going to be top heavy, meaning you have a lot more classes in your senior or in your sophomore and junior year, and then you kind of tailor off that senior year or flip-flopped in the way that you ascend as you progress through your academic career. But in general, I would say you will fall around somewhere between 16 credits, probably every semester that you are on campus. And I will hand it over to Emily to kind of talk about how she's also able to be involved.
Yeah, so I have found a lot of enjoyment from getting involved here on campus. I got involved as soon as I stepped foot on campus because I knew that I did not want Purdue to just be academics for me. I really wanted to make the most of my time here and get involved. So I did that through mostly finding organizations that I wanted to be a part of. I tried some and didn't like them, so I stepped away. And then I kind of narrowed it down to a couple main ones that I really contribute my time to. And so I have found that while the FYE curriculum is definitely rigorous, it is not overwhelming. There may be weeks where you're busier than others, but you definitely have time to get involved on campus and still have time to go hang out with your friends, to go to the co-rec and go to the go work out, things like that. So it's definitely possible. You just have to get really good at time management. For me, that has looked like planning and like a planner. I'm a big scheduler. I love to plan. I keep my planner on me always. And I will schedule in exactly what has to get done today for my coursework, what has to get done today for my organizations, and then what else I want to get done. Like if I want to do a workout, I'll even put that in my planner. Or if I'm going to go get dinner or coffee with friends, I'll put that in my planner. So it's all in one place, and I'm making sure that I'm not overwhelming myself, making sure that everything is pretty realistic for the day. So that's worked out really well for me. And just for some perspective, I would say I probably spend at least 10 hours a week just on like being involved in the organizations that I'm involved in. Some weeks it's more, some weeks it's less. But I'm pretty involved in the organizations that I am involved in. And so even with all of that, and like working an on-campus job, I have found time to relax and do things like that. So it's definitely possible. You just have to, it takes some practice and adjusting when you come from high school to college.
What about you, Alana? Now that you're a senior, you've had, I'm sure, a lot of opportunities to get involved as well as a variable amount of workloads.
Yeah, I feel kind of old now. It's hard for me to remember exactly what the workload was like as a freshman. But I do know that just in general, because it's not just the workload, but also the rigor of the class, that was definitely an adjustment for me because everything in college is squeezed down to one semester rather than two. So I had to definitely revamp my study schedule. I study a lot more in college than I did in high school. But I definitely also got super involved. I felt like I am much more productive whenever I'm involved. So like I'm so unproductive now that we're doing online classes and I have like nothing to do besides like classwork and whatever I want, which is kind of nice. But when I was really involved, I would, same kind of as Emily, as my Google Calendar is filled out for everything I'm going to do. And I would know exactly what time I had to study, and I would really plan my day accordingly and know I had to be productive in specific hours and other hours I could have free. But I definitely recommend getting involved. And I definitely, if you're someone who wants to do that and who kind of like operates on that kind of schedule. But moving on, I saw that we had a follow-up question on minoring in electrical engineering and majoring in computer science. So I think, Colin, you're probably best to answer that kind of question, and maybe you could talk a little bit about how internships work for hiring stuff in that major aspect.
Yeah. So great questions, everyone. Thank you. Really happy to answer them for you guys. So starting with Penguin, you were asking about a minor possibly limiting your option as getting a position as an electrical engineer. And as Emily mentioned, I would probably say so, simply because you don't have the opportunity to take as many classes and really develop your technical skill set in that particular major. And that would be the same for the opposite. So if you were an electrical engineer and a minor in CS, that might limit your options as far as getting CS positions as an intern or a full-time opportunity. Of course, there are always exceptions. So if you're really involved outside of class through extracurricular opportunities, if you're able to show your experience and your technical skill set either on your resume or once you do get in the interview, then there could be exceptions made depending on where you fall on that spectrum. But in general, a minor is not going to give you the amount of classes or technical skill set. It's really just an introduction. It's really just a way to wet your toe as far as what you might learn or the possibilities of what you could learn. For example, I have a minor in communications, so in no way would I really try to compete with a communications major in an effort to get a position for multimedia communications or digital communications. For me, I've been able to use my major or use my minor to complement my major. So if you're a CS student and you're majoring in CS and you have a minor in electrical engineering, that might give you a heads up or a hand up in pursuing maybe particular CS positions that deal with some hardware or deal with some power and communication networks. But as far as strictly going to the electrical side, that might be a little tricky. So hopefully that gives you some introduction or gives you some more perspective. We will talk about internships, co-ops, and research a little later, but I did want to talk about what Jay Falbum was saying. That's a really great question that I think will be useful for you because we have 4 different perspectives, not only in state, but out of state. So why did we all choose Purdue over comparable engineering schools? I'll start with Alana since she is from California.
Yeah, so I get that question a lot. So it came down to a few things. So first of all, I wanted to get out of state. I thought that part of the college experience was that I wanted to be exposed to new types of people, new places, and I thought that staying in California wouldn't really give me that full effect. At Purdue is really great because it has a lot of international students. It has students from all over the country and all different socioeconomic backgrounds, political ideologies, religious beliefs, and that's really what I wanted, was a really diverse school where I would be exposed to all of those different backgrounds. Then in terms of engineering, like I said before, I really liked the first year engineering program because I didn't know exactly what I wanted to major in, and I wanted to make a really informed decision about that major. So I saw that I would get that at Purdue, and I definitely am happy with that because of the major I chose, which I would not have chosen had it not been for the first year engineering program. And then I just liked the environment at Purdue. Honestly, when I visited, everyone was super, super nice and super friendly and welcoming. Anywhere I went on campus, if I got lost, people were super helpful. People were always really willing to stop and just tell me about their experience. And that's been true throughout my college experience of just people wanting to be there to help each other and people wanting to work collaboratively in terms of classes, but also just in social life, people have always been really friendly and open. So I'd say like those are the main kind of reasons I chose Purdue, was the FYE program, the like general environment, and then like that it was such a diverse school. What about you, Gabe? You also came from out of state.
Yeah, so I'm from Miami, Florida. I'm super used to having a ton of stuff to do around me, and it's rarely being bored. I can easily go with my friends to the beach and to like the movies and to the mall all on the same day. And when I came to Purdue, I was worried that I wouldn't be able to have the same amount of opportunities just to be able to have fun, or to just kind of live the traditional college experience. And when I first got to Purdue, I actually saw it was the opposite. Ever since I've been there for the last, like, again, semester and a half, because I'm still a freshman, I have had very, very few times, if any, that I can legitimately say that I was ever bored. Sorry. Sorry about that. Where was I? Yeah, so there was that, just to be able to come to Purdue, to a large state school, and to be able to have so many opportunities, not only just to have fun, but also just to grow professionally and personally. It's been super, super helpful, and I've used a lot of those resources pretty much to the fullest. Um, as that, and throughout my time touring colleges, I toured a lot of very, very strong engineering schools. And one of the main things that I saw that was similar between most of those engineering schools was how competitive the environment is. Everyone is there because they know how to work, and they're very driven. However, instead of prioritizing collaboration, it's more of a competition between one another to get the best internships, to get the best grades. And I personally didn't like that. As much as I do love to compete, I prefer collaboration much more. I like an environment where everyone is willing to go out of their way to ensure that everyone else around them is succeeding. And again, I'm really sorry.
No worries. So in the meantime,
Sorry.
if you're good, Gabe, you're good?
Yeah, my dad is recording me while he's talking with one of his friends over FaceTime, distracting me. Um, Yeah, so the collaboration was fantastic. Opportunities were fantastic, and I also wanted to get out of state just to be able to have that experience to kind of almost just start afresh and start new. And Purdue gave me that.
And I can kind of speak from an in-state's perspective. I too considered a lot of different schools, small, medium, and big, within Indiana, outside of Indiana, all the way to Syracuse and then Tennessee, as well as um, border schools in the Midwest. And what ultimately brought me back to Purdue was the strength of the engineering program, not necessarily from an academic standpoint, but its perception and its value once you get into professional and industrial settings. So having that perspective laid out from a Purdue engineering alum was really impactful on me choosing Purdue. Having been from Indiana, I just wanted to leave. I just thought everyone that wanted to do engineering from Indiana just happened to go to Purdue, and I wanted to do something different. But after I was able to get that information, I was more comfortable choosing Purdue, and I could see how going to Purdue would set me up for the possible career that I aspire to have. And then the second point, as Gabe kind of mentioned, Alana, also community was a big thing for me. I looked at community in two ways. You have the broader community, being a Purdue Boilermaker, being a Purdue engineer, and being able to join this family. And then for me, the second part of that community was also the community I saw myself being a part of, the community I saw myself making while I was at Purdue. So for me, I was able to determine 3 or 4 distinct organizations on campus, organizations or offices on campus that would allow me to rely on them for resources, rely on them for support, both professional, academic, and personal. And that was really important for me in choosing my decision. So those, for me, to kind of give you guys some perspective, were the Office of Future Engineers, this current office that is bringing the Purdue Engineering Daily Drop-in to everyone, as well as the National Society of Black Engineers. That's an international organization that was actually founded at Purdue, intending to support Black engineers. And then thirdly was the Minority Engineering Program at Purdue, which is known within academia for their programs focused on making Black engineers successful. So all of those organizations and programs were very impactful for me to choose Purdue. Emily?
Yeah, so like Colin, I was also coming from Indiana. So Purdue was in state for me. And I was similar in that I thought I would never really go to Purdue because so many people from my high school go there. I thought it was just another state school. I didn't really realize kind of what the Purdue name and brand carries with it. So as I was kind of narrowing down my schools I actually wanted to apply to and visit, I couldn't ignore that Purdue was one of the top 3 schools for industrial engineering, and knowing that I wanted to study industrial engineering, that was something that kept Purdue on my list, and I'm really glad it did because as I was touring some other schools on that list that I applied to, kind of echoing what Gabe said earlier, they all had a very competitive feel, whereas Purdue was very collaborative and helpful, and just had a very friendly kind of vibe to it. Compared to the other schools, which were very academically competitive, which I just didn't think I would do well in. So that was a big thing. Additionally, I knew I wanted to get like that fun college experience, and Purdue offers that, being in the Big Ten, being such a huge school. They have the basketball games, they have the football games I can go to. We're not just an engineering school. We have so many other schools and majors within Purdue. I wanted to be able to meet all sorts of different people from all over the world. I wanted my life to not just be surrounding engineering. And Purdue really offered that more than any of the other schools I was looking at. So I could kind of get that well-rounded academic, like really highly regarded engineering education, while also having fun while doing it and having a really great community. And now that I'm here, I have not regretted it once. There's so many I had no idea how well respected Purdue is in industry. I had no idea how many Purdue engineering alumni are in. They seem like they're everywhere. There's just it's such a in like that list of really high like top engineering schools. Purdue is one of the largest, and so that alumni network is so excellent and so helpful. It's not something I ever considered coming into college, but I would like to point that out to all of you. So yeah, that's kind of my long-winded way of saying that I had a really good balance of the college experience I was looking for as well as the academic experience I was looking for.
Awesome. So there were more questions regarding AP credits and BC as well as AP and dual credit. And we did link the website in order to determine which classes you would take that would fulfill engineering classes at Purdue. So I just did want to take this short, quick moment to mention that first year engineering plan of study that you do see is an example. It isn't a sample. You do have the ability to take in classes, or I should say, take credit for certain classes depending on the score you got for your AP test, as well as if you were dually enrolled at another school while in high school. So that is a flexible plan of study. It is not static. You are not required to take calculus or physics at Purdue if you do have the credit. We also do get a lot of questions regarding should freshman students take the credit when it comes to Calculus 1, for example. There's a lot of advice and conversation around this topic. Some students will say, yes, take the credit if you feel comfortable with the material, if you feel ready to go to the next step, go ahead and take that credit. Then there's the other side that says, if you have taken the class, if you've been exposed, you might want to investigate taking the class again while at Purdue in an effort to get a better grade or get an A in that class to boost your GPA. So as a freshman, I had the mindset, having the opportunity to take calculus in high school, having a really good teacher, being comfortable with the material. I thought to myself, I'm going to retake calculus at Purdue. I'm going to get an A, and that will boost my GPA. Thankfully, that did happen. It happened as I planned. It happened as I expected. But very explicitly, let me say, retaking the class at Purdue does not guarantee you will get an A or even a B. Retaking the class is what did I want to say? You open yourself up to not getting the best grade possible simply because you are retaking the class when you could have taken the credit and moved on. So I just want to have a clear warning. Now, as a senior, having freshmen that I advise and talk to, I like to suggest to students, if you feel comfortable with the material, go ahead and take the credit, go to the next level. Don't waste time to retake the class and hope to get an A when you can go to the next level and put your energy into the next class. So now I'm going to hand it over to Alana as well as Emily, as they both have the opportunity to take the credit and go to the next level, and they can talk about their experiences.
Yeah, so I'll talk about that real quick. So I came in with credit for AP Calculus, both 1 and 2, or the equivalent of Calc 1 and 2 here, as well as AP Chemistry. And I took all of my calculus credit and started in Calculus 3. So it was definitely a difficult transition because Calc 3 is a hard class because, it's college level math. And it was my first math class, and your first math class at Purdue will always feel like the hardest probably because it's just such a different schedule and teaching format than it is in high school, at least from my experience. So it was definitely difficult. But I'm really glad I took the credit because it gave me a lot more flexibility later on. I felt really comfortable with calculus coming in, and I got to do a minor, and I studied abroad twice, like I said. And that was all much easier to figure out my schedule for because I was a little ahead on some of my classes. And I will also say with my chemistry class, I came in with credit for both chemistry 1 and 2. And I ended up taking the credit for chemistry 1, but retaking chemistry 2. And it was really easy. I got an A, but again, I could have been, first of all, I had to get up at 7:30 in the morning for my lab, which was not my favorite thing. And I wouldn't have had to do that if I didn't retake chemistry when I had credit for it. And second of all, I could have just been ahead a semester on physics, which again would have freed up either more time for me to do other things or more time for me to take more fun classes, since I would say most people don't think chemistry 2 is their like ultimate exciting class. So that's my perspective. My last thing to say is that GPA isn't the biggest thing. I know when you're in high school, you're always thinking about like, oh, I need a perfect GPA for college or whatever. But at least if you're going into industry, most employers aren't looking at GPA as the first thing. So having that GPA boost wouldn't necessarily compare to getting a minor or putting that time into a club or something else that you could be doing that's better than just retaking a class because you think it'll look better on your transcript. So that's my last little word of wisdom.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I took credits for Calc 1 and 2 through AP Calculus BC, and I would just echo everything that Ilana said. It allowed me to have some open space in my schedule so I could get ahead on classes or start filling in classes for my minors. I know with I had an open window in my first semester that I took a women in engineering seminar that I really enjoyed that I probably would not have taken if I did not have that open space in my schedule. So I really enjoyed that. So there's a lot of different options, but again, it really depends on how comfortable you are with the material, and just kind of an awareness that there will be a learning curve from whatever calculus you last left off on, and the one you're coming into here, because Purdue math is just so different from any math class you will have taken in high school. And that kind of goes for any class, because college is just an overall different structure than high school, but especially the math courses.
And I see a question from Andrew about taking Calc 3 specifically. So in a second, what I'll do is I'll link the Math Past Exam Archive, which has all of the past exams from like the past 20 years, as far as I can tell. And what we usually recommend, if you're not sure if you should start in calculus, whatever, like take the credit or not take the credit, is we recommend you take the calculus final for Purdue from the year prior and see what you get on the score. So if you're thinking about starting in Calc 2, we would say take the Calc 1 score. If you're thinking about starting in Calc 3, we'd say take the Calc 2 final. And if you get at least a 70% on the exam, then we'd say then you're doing well, you should go on ahead into the next class. And if you get under a 70, then you can decide maybe if you want to retake the class to improve your mastery. So I'll link that real quick, and I'll put the little what the course codes mean too, as well as Calc 1 or Calc 2.
Also, if you are going to take the opportunity to determine if you are comfortable with the material or if you've mastered the material, go ahead and make it as close to a testing environment as possible. And that means if it is a final, it will be 2 hours, no calculator for all calculus classes. There's going to be no calculator. And, be sure that you're actually doing it as if it was a test. So that's our only words of wisdom in regards to that. So we did have the opportunity to talk about internships, co-ops. Oh, actually, I did want to make a mention of this. There's also a lot of questions around what is the difference between Math 161 and Math 165 if they both are for calculus. And the biggest difference is going to be how many credits each class will be. So Math 161 is a 5-credit class, which means you will meet 5 times a week. And that is broken down into 3 times, Monday, Wednesday, Friday for lecture, and then 2 times for recitation. Recitation is a breakdown or is a smaller gathering of students, and that's head by a undergraduate a graduate teaching assistant that will administer quizzes, give you guys the opportunity to ask test prep questions as well as homework questions. And then Math 165 is a 4-credit class, which means you will only meet 4 times a week. The same amount of lectures, so Monday, Wednesday, Friday for lecture, but only Tuesday for recitation. Again, smaller meeting, graduate level TA. We'd like to suggest if you are very comfortable with the material and you feel like you don't need to meet 5 times a week, then go ahead and take 165. You'll still get the same material. It is faster paced, but you can free up at least an hour on Thursday and apply that to another class that you might want to go more in depth in. And then if you haven't taken calculus, or if you don't feel comfortable in what your high school was able to teach you at calculus, then go ahead and pursue Math 161, which will give you the opportunity to interact with the material 5 times a week in various aspects. So that's the main difference, and that is the same for calculus 2 also. Each number will be the succession of the following. I did want to mention that we reviewed first year engineering, and there was one key aspect that I kind of didn't go over, and that is the transition to major process. That is the process in which first year engineering students will go from first year engineering into mechanical engineering like Alana, or computer engineering like myself. And that process is really determined by your GPA. I'm bringing up the website here. There is a way to guarantee that you do get your first choice, and that'll be in that link there. Essentially, you're going to want to be in first year engineering. You'll want to take the classes once, pass on the first time with a C- or better. You'll want to have a cumulative GPA of 3.2, and then an engineering GPA of 3.2 as well. For more specifics, definitely refer to that website, but there is a way to guarantee that you do get your first choice. Students will pick their first and second choice. And in the past, historically, we have had the opportunity we have had 92% of all first year engineering students get their first choice. Of that 92%, only about 60% were able to qualify for that guarantee. So that gives you a perspective of, you don't have to get that guarantee in order to get your first choice. It is a nice safe haven that if you do, but it's not necessarily a requirement. We do advise students to pursue at least a minimum of a 3.2 GPA, cumulative GPA. And that is really because there's an average of a 3.23 GPA for all freshmen that first year in engineering. So if you want more questions, or if you have more questions about that process, about a particular major, feel free to ask in the chat. But that is kind of the final aspect of the first year engineering program and going into your respective discipline. Moving on to experiential aspects of Purdue and Purdue Engineering, we're going to start talking about internships, co-ops, the difference, as well as later on touch on research and the opportunities that are available to students. So starting with internships and co-ops, Alana, did you want to talk about the difference and kind of detail your experience as someone that has had the opportunity to participate in multiple internships?
Sure. So I know co-op is not really as familiar of a term for a lot of people before they come into college. So what a co-op is, and it does mean different things depending on the school, I believe. So at Purdue, what it means is it's like an internship, but you sign a contract with the company and say you'll go back to that company X number of times for a repeated internship. So that's usually either 3 times or 5 times, and usually that'll mean you alternate a semester of school with a semester of work. So those internships could be, or those co-op sessions could be in the summer or during a semester, a fall or a spring, and you're not paying tuition while you are on co-op if it's during like a typical semester. And there's sort of the main reasons we suggest you choose one or the other. If you're going for a co-op, we say usually that's because you really know what industry you want to be in or what company you want to work for. versus an internship says like, oh, you want to choose different kinds of companies, different industries, and then you kind of can vary your experience a little bit more. And then how each company handles their co-ops can vary differently. So some companies will send you to a different location throughout the US or even throughout the world for each co-op rotation, whereas other companies will keep you in the same location. Some will rotate you, in different maybe aspects of a specific product. Others might put you in totally different job function for each rotation. So it really depends on the company, and you'd have to look into that if you are considering a co-op. But another really cool thing about co-ops and internships is that for engineers, they are paid, and they tend to be averaging, I believe we say between 15 and 30 is the typical. I think most tend to be in the 20 to 30 range as far as internship payment goes and co-op payment. And so a lot of people can use that money, especially with a co-op, since you're going 3 or 5 times to help pay your tuition, which is really helpful to offset that cost. And a lot of those do turn into full-time offers, which is really cool. So for me, I got my first internship actually through something I'd done in high school where I had a connection to someone in engineering. My second internship I got from Industrial Roundtable, which Emily can talk about in a second. But that's a career fair on campus. And then from that internship, I actually interviewed while I was at my internship, and I had my full-time job offer before I even got back to school. So I personally chose internships because I knew I wanted to be in medical devices, but I didn't know what kind of job role I wanted to be in. So my first time was in a design role. My second time was in more operations and manufacturing. So I was really happy I got to do different things. I didn't know what location I wanted to be in or what company even I wanted to work for. So personally, I was not ready to commit to a co-op, but I know a lot of people really enjoy them. So Emily, you want to talk a little bit more about Industrial Roundtable?
Yeah, so Industrial Roundtable is an annual career fair we have every September here at Purdue. It is the largest student-run career fair in the country, and it has about 400 companies attending, and they are recruiting all different majors, all different years, full-time, intern, and co-op positions, and it's primarily focused on engineering students. So that career fair is a really great opportunity. It's at the very beginning of recruiting season. So a lot of these companies, it's the first fair they're attending before they go to all the other schools. And you can really just kind of pitch yourself to a lot of these big name companies. We have Boeing that comes, Ford, GM, GE. We had Tesla come in the past. Microsoft usually makes an appearance. But again, there's 400 companies, so even if you don't want a big company, there's small companies that attend too. So it's a really great opportunity to get an internship or co-op or full-time position here. And so the way it will work is it's a 2-day long fair. Most companies are there for 2 days, I would say, but a lot of them will do on-site interviews, so you'll talk to them one day, and then they might have you come in for an interview the next day, and then the next week you have a job. So it's a really, really great way to connect with industry very early on in the school year. It's not the only career fair that we have on campus. We have a lot of different fairs throughout the year. Another one that's kind of on the same scale as IR is Expo. So that's about 200 companies coming in January or February, also looking for engineering students. And then there's also different engineering majors will have their own specific career fairs. And then there's just a variety of other fairs happening throughout the year, like the co-op fair, or we're having the just-in-time fair in a couple weeks for people still looking for last-minute internships. So it seems like almost every week there's some sort of career fair here. If not, there's industry here. But I would say career fairs are a great way to get connected with companies, put yourself out there face-to-face with recruiters. A lot of the recruiters are past Purdue alumni, so they were just in your shoes a couple of years ago. They know what you're going through. They know a lot about the courses and organizations that you're a part of. So it's really neat, very unique to Purdue, these types of fairs. But again, not the only way to get connected. I've gotten 2 internships through Industrial Roundtable, so I would say it's pretty common. Yeah, I think that's about it on career fairs, unless anyone else has any questions about them.
Gabe, I wanted to ask you, as far as your experience with pursuing internships, co-ops, what is it like as a freshman? I mean, I remember when I was a freshman, I still went to Industrial Roundtable. I went to the career fairs because you want to make that connection, that relationship with recruiters, as they're often going to return in the following years. But as someone that's going through it right now, what has your experience been?
So for freshmen, the process of getting internships, co-ops is a little different, but for internships specifically, it's definitely a little harder because a lot of these companies are looking for some college experience and some workload to be able to look back on. And freshmen obviously don't generally have that beyond some of the APs that they would come in with. Now, I do have a couple friends of mine who are also freshmen that do have internships, so it's definitely possible. It's just a little harder than it would be if you were a sophomore, junior, or senior. The way that I view Industrial Roundtable or just the general career fairs that we have when I'm going in as a freshman is really just to be able to better understand how to talk to recruiters and to network better, because a lot of them will end up remembering your name, especially if you try to make sure that that experience with them is as memorable as possible. They do end up also giving out business cards, so it's a great opportunity to connect with people on LinkedIn and just give them a quick thank you for spending the time to talk to you. And that's a great way for them to also remember your name, so that when it comes to the next career fair, when you're a sophomore or a junior, they know you, you know them, and you have a better rapport with them. And that oftentimes does lead to pretty good internship opportunities. With respect to that, so we do have, like Emily mentioned, we have the two main career fairs. We also have one that's coming up pretty soon called the Just-in-Time Career Fair, which is nearing the end of the year. So if you don't end up having an internship, such as myself, I'm still looking for one. So I plan on going to that career fair. It's a virtual fair with the hopes of potentially getting an internship. So there's definitely a lot of opportunities. Excluding the career fair, I have a friend, this is quite rare, but it's possible, that her advisor for FYE actually had some connections in the industry. And he had a good friend that was looking for potential interns, and he recommended her for that internship, and she got her internship from that. So people are always trying to make sure that you're making sure that you're excelling in whatever you're doing, and making sure that you have opportunities, whether that might be summer school, to get ahead on some courses, or a potential job during the summer.
Yeah, you actually hit on a lot of golden nuggets that I actually had to write down and make sure I discuss a little more in detail. So my tip to everyone that's listening, especially some prospective seniors, if you don't have a LinkedIn, please start that LinkedIn profile. Begin to contribute to it, even if it's just, working on a part-time job or anything like that. LinkedIn, I've gotten multiple communications with recruiters just from my LinkedIn profile itself. So that is definitely something you'll want to utilize. And fun fact, or fast fact rather, more and more recruiting is being conducted on these online platforms, and LinkedIn is surely one of them. Also, Gabe mentioned go to career fairs as a freshman. It's going to be something you've probably never experienced. And at least for me, it was very stressful. And there was a lot of nervousness in trying to sell yourself and trying to talk to companies that, you see their products and you see them in the media, and having the opportunity to get in front of recruiters in an effort to actually study or work there is really nerve-wracking for me, at least. So definitely get exposure so that you have some sort of familiarity with how it works. How do you sell yourself? How do you talk about yourself in an effort to get that internship or co-op? And then secondly, or lastly, as Gabe mentioned, stay in contact with recruiters. Part of my story is that although I've had 2 internships at both Intel and Microsoft, the first time that I applied to Microsoft, I got the first screening interview, but I ultimately did not get the internship because I didn't progress. And I stayed in contact with the recruiter, and she helped me prepare for the second time. And that second time is what put me over the hump. I was able to ask her, how do I best prepare? How do I adjust my resume? Are there any tips that you could offer me? And she gave me a whole email worth of materials that I could utilize in order to prepare for the interview. So definitely stay in contact with recruiters and utilize them because they want to see you be successful. So that's my 2 cents on any career advice that I could possibly think of. There are also multiple organizations on campus that will provide help for engineering students, the Center for Career Opportunities, as well as the Office of Professional Practice, giving you the opportunity to review your resume as well as do interview prep online as well as in person. And then lastly, the Center for Career Opportunities, I know in the past couple of years, has actually partnered with JCPenney in the Lafayette Mall in order to provide discounts to students that are looking to buy professional attire right before industrial roundtable. So there are a lot of offices on campus that will that you'll be able to utilize in order to get internships, co-ops, and other professional experiences. And then lastly, kind of talking about my experience, definitely utilize career fairs, definitely utilize your own network, but don't forget to apply to companies online. That's how I've been able to acquire all of my internships, going to Intel's website, going to Microsoft's website, applying online, submitting my resume through their portal. And then the second step in that process was contacting and networking and communicating with recruiters once they did come onto campus at various events, asking them, as mentioned beforehand, how do I best prepare? Are there any tips you can give me? What might the recruiter or interviewer look for? So that's another resource that you can definitely utilize. And actually, the Center for Career Opportunities has their own job portal that you can utilize in order to submit resumes in an effort to get full-time as well as internship positions. So that was a lot. That was very quickly an overview of co-ops, internships. If you have more questions, if you like more detail, we can definitely talk about that later. I did want to provide this link that I'm sending now in the chat. That is the graduation information from 2019 that details top 25 employers for specific majors, top salaries, as well as where students will go, what will they do after graduation, is it graduate school, is it industry? So that's a great website to utilize in order to get specific information about a particular major in regards to the professional outlook of that major. Okay, so there's a question regarding summer start and early start. Although Emily did answer your question, I did want to make a note about, is it available, especially within the environment of COVID-19? As of right now, both early start and summer start are planning to occur in the month of July. But again, stay aware of any announcements by Purdue University and stay aware of any announcements as things are able to change very quickly. But as of right now, those two programs are intended to be on campus and in person. And if you are an honor student looking to do early start, then early start is really just an opportunity for students to take classes online before their first semester or their freshman semester, before the fall semester. So you might not be able to take the honors engineering designated class, but you can surely take Calculus 1, Physics 1, English and Writing, any class up to like, I think 7 or so credits in an effort to put you ahead or limit your course load for the fall semester or any other semester thereafter. So early start is going to be what you make of it. It's not going to change whether you are an honor student or not. Oh, no worries, Penguin. You are fine. This is just an easy way for us to communicate. So hardware due to robotics, hardware, ECS during high school, but I enjoy both CS and electrical engineering. Okay, so it looks like you have an interest in robotics and hardware, control systems, embedded systems, maybe. I would, this is my bias as I am a computer engineer, so definitely consider it within the own terms of what you are hoping to do and hoping to pursue. But computer engineering might give you the best of both worlds as far as what you'll be learning. and how to apply that in a particular manner. Of course, you can do robotics with the electrical and the CS, but I would also, since you are looking at both of those majors, and since you do have an interest in hardware, I would also suggest pursuing or at least investigating how computer engineering might be able to fit within robotics and the hardware aspect. We get a lot of questions regarding BGR and move-in day. I'm going to hand it over to Gabe if he can kind of talk about BGR, his experience, what's that like as a freshman, first time on campus for the fall semester.
So BGR remains is probably one of the best experiences that I've had at Purdue. It made the transition coming in from high school to college much easier, especially in the sense that you come in without having to take any classes. It's essentially just a week where you get to meet everyone else that's in your class and get to know campus better, do some activities with a ton of people. It's pretty much just to have fun. And to come into college with that instead of straight into classes, it's a great way to start classes with already a pretty strong group of friends, or at least people that you know, and that you can come to for help, and vice versa when you guys might be struggling in whatever assignment or you guys just want to have lunch. BGR from my understanding, it's still planning on going on. I would also keep a close eye into what Purdue is saying with regards to that. But if I personally definitely recommend it. It's been an absolutely fantastic experience from everything that we've done, from the little raves that we'd have. They're not quite little, they're pretty big, at night with pretty much the whole freshman class, to the activities that we do. They would have a ton of games, like a life-size foosball game that they brought in a while back. And we also were able to just be able to tour campus and understand where our classes are. So once it does come to that week where we're first starting class, we know exactly where we're going. We know where the dining courts are. We know pretty much our way around campus, which is a very, very great thing to have, or at least to understand. And yeah, the moving in process was also pretty easy. Coming into campus, we had a ton of the RAs and some of the general resident staff there outside helping out with not only getting things out of our car. In fact, they told me that I shouldn't get anything out of my car myself. They would do it for me. So that was quite fun. And they guided you to your room. They made sure that you were all settled in. They gave you a checklist of everything that you should look into for your room to make sure that everything's in order. And overall, the process was very, very, very easy. Yeah. I don't know if any of you guys have anything else to add to that.
Awesome. Thank you, Gabe. I appreciate that. So we had another question regarding opinions on finding a roommate versus finding or going with a random roommate. I will start this conversation off, as I did random 2 times, both my freshman and sophomore year. And although you probably heard stories about, terrible roommates or terrible things happening with a random roommate, I would say, you do leave yourself open to that possibility. Just that's the nature of randomness. In my experience, it wasn't bad at all. I would say we're not best friends. We're not, friends at all, actually. I don't continuously talk to them anymore. We were roommates. They were good roommates. I was a good roommate. It was a very good roommate relationship, but it didn't really progress beyond that. So that's one perspective of it. Did anyone request or also do random, Emily?
So I kind of did a meet in the middle thing where it wasn't completely random, but it wasn't someone I knew coming into college. So if you're an admitted student, you might have seen a Purdue class of 2020, what is it, 24? Oh my gosh. Like Facebook group. We also have a engineering specific one for a Slack that you can join. I'll link that Slack in the chat. But a lot of those will have people looking for roommates that they might not know in their high school, but they're looking for someone else but want to kind of see all their options and meet people before they go completely random. So that's what I did. I posted like a little blurb about myself on a Facebook group, and I said what I was looking for in a roommate, and had some people reached out to some people doing the same thing, and met my roommate through there. The girl I met, she lived and actually only about 2 hours away from me in another part of Indiana, and she was a really great roommate. I really like that process because especially coming from a high school that so many people went to Purdue, I wanted to make sure that I didn't get stuck with only people from my high school once I got to Purdue and college. I wanted to be able to meet new people. So that's kind of why I did that. And it was a really great experience. We had a really good time. We don't stay super in touch anymore, but that's mostly just because we've kind of just gone different paths. She was a really great roommate. I really liked that option. I think it was a great way to immediately have one new person that I got to meet and hang out with. So I will link the Slack if you're someone who is looking for a roommate. That's the way you can do it. You'll just request each other on your housing contract, and then you'll also want to make sure that you rank your housing, like when you're ranking what type of housing you want that to be in the same order. Those are the two things you need to make sure that you get a roommate, the roommate that you're looking for. And you both do have to request each other for that to work. So I'll link the Slack. There is a channel in that Slack for people looking for roommates. Again, there's probably a Facebook group as well that you can go in if you want to go outside of engineering. That's what I did. My roommate is in nursing, or my freshman year roommate was in nursing. So that kind of gives you a little balance of not completely random, but not necessarily someone you know.
If you do end up going the random route, Purdue does a pretty good job at being able to pair you with people who have relatively similar interests. When you guys are doing your roommate request, there is a preferences. I guess it's a survey almost of just what you prefer, whether that's a quiet room, a noisy one, if you don't mind if people are over, or like do you like to spend a lot of time gaming, stuff like that. So they pair you with people who have generally similar interests or similar living style. Sorry. I would say that I got pretty lucky with my roommate. We got along pretty much instantly. We still keep in touch now, even when we're like 1,200 miles away from one another. We won't be living together next semester, but we have kept in super, super good touch. And that was purely random. If anything, there was a slight similarity within our interests initially, just because we were both in the learning community, EPICS. And if you do end up getting into the learning community, you will be paired with someone who's in that learning community as well. So that's a very easy way to already, again, have a common interest with your roommate. But again, if you don't end up doing a learning community, if you just do completely random, there's a high chance that you will at least be able to tolerate your roommate. I don't think I've had really heard of any stories where people genuinely hated the roommate or had any extremely bad experience with someone else.
I'll go ahead and just round out the conversation on roommates. And I actually did a similar thing to Emily, where I posted in the class of 2020 Facebook page. And I just put a little blurb about sort of my hobbies as well as my living habits, and talked to a couple people through that. And my freshman year roommate is actually still my roommate today as a senior 3 years later. So obviously that worked out really well for me, and she's one of my best friends. And my main thing I would say, whether you're going to go random and fill out your little survey on the housing contract, or if you're going to post on Facebook or Slack, is just to be really honest about your living habits. There might be things you're aspiring to do in college, like be more organized or more social or whatever, but your living habits are not the place to push for that. If you say you're super clean and you're actually really messy, your roommate's probably going to be pretty upset with you, and that's not something you can just change overnight. So I think that's a big part of why my roommate and I worked so well together and are still living together today, is that we're both really honest about what we wanted from a roommate and what our living habits and living styles actually were. And so we could easily know what to expect from that and didn't walk into any major surprises. So I think that's like a good way to round out our roommate conversation, unless anyone else has feedback on that.
Nope, that was great. Hopefully that was able to give you some perspective, Arjun. Since we are talking about housing options, we'll kind of transition to talk about the various housing options students have on campus, as well as the various dining options students can utilize on campus. So I will kind of start this conversation off, starting with the perspective that I've lived on campus all 4 years that I've been here, as well as I've had a meal plan all 4 years. And we get a lot of questions about, what is the best residence hall for freshmen, or what's the most common or the best dining meal plan. So I'll answer both of those and transition it over to someone else to kind of get their perspective. So for me, I would say overall, the best dining or the best residence hall for freshmen would be Shreve, simply because of its location and proximity to multiple dining courts and its number of lounges and study spaces within the dorm itself. I think Shreve has 5 or 6 lounges and is within 5 minutes of at least 2 or 3 residents or 2 or 3 dining courts. So it has a lot of flexibility on where to study, but also where to live. With that, Shreve is really known for learning communities. So unless you are pursuing a learning community, you may or may not land in Shreve. Also, if you don't do Shreve, or if you aren't doing a learning community, I would definitely check out, Hillenbrand or Earhart, because those are both residence halls that have dining courts in them. So if I don't prioritize proximity to dining courts, if I don't prioritize air conditioning, and if I don't prioritize study spaces, definitely look at dining courts, or definitely look at residence halls that have dining courts within them. That's a really nice luxury to have, especially when it's pouring rain or it's freezing cold outside during the various seasons that we have in Indiana. And then the best meal plan that I think fits most people would be the 13 meal plan. That works out to be 2 meals Monday through Saturday and then 1 meal on Sunday. As someone that's lived on campus all 4 years, I've always done the 13 meal plan. That's just what's worked for me, as well as the reasoning behind always doing 13 meal plan was the fact that I would always eat dinner, so that's 1 meal. And then depending on my class schedule, I was only able to eat 1 meal throughout the day. So if I had a block of morning classes at Purdue, your earliest class could start at 7:30, and especially as a freshman, that possibility of having a 7:30 is really high. So don't be surprised if you do. It's kind of like a rite of passage for all engineering or Purdue students. So I've had 3 or 4 semesters where I've had a 7:30, and this semester I have a 7:30 lab, which I'm not really too happy about. But if I have a block of morning classes, then I would have to wake up at 6 or 6:30. And as a college student, I really like my sleep. So I don't eat breakfast if I have a breakfast, or if I have a morning block of classes. And then if I have an afternoon block of classes, then I can't eat lunch. So I'll just eat breakfast. So that's usually how I've always just been able to make the 13 meal plan work. In addition to swipes, as we like to call them at Purdue, swipes are the ability to go into dining courts and swipe in. Our dining courts are all buffet style. In addition to swipes, you have dining dollars, and dining dollars provides you the opportunity to say, go get Starbucks and spend money off of your dining dollars account without having to spend your own money. Dining dollars also give you the ability to go to, say, the smaller restaurants in the Purdue Memorial Union, as well as spend money on some of the on-campus other dining options without having to use your 13 meal swipes. So if you did want to eat 5 times in a day without using your swipes, you could use your swipes 2 times and then just spend your money off of your dining dollars the rest of the time. Also, dining dollars are a great way for you to eat, or I should say, dining dollars are a good way for you to eat on Sundays without spending your own money. As a freshman, I remember managing my money for the 16 weeks that I was in school so that I didn't have to spend any additional money for Sunday dinner, as Purdue has all of the dining halls closed for Sunday evening. So if you don't want to spend your own money, but you do want to eat on-campus food options, then you can spend the money that you have for dining dollars. So that's a broad overview of what I think are the best options for housing, what I think is the best meal plan for eating, as well as a broad overview of the housing options and dining options. Does anyone have anything to add?
I do have a quick thing to add. I don't think you said it, Colin, but sorry if I repeat anything. And that's that if you have an allergy or any type of specific food needs, like you're vegetarian or eat halal food or kosher food, they do have ways to accommodate you. So I think, I'm not sure the exact process for that, but they will make that clear when you start at Purdue, how you can get those resources and accommodations. So Windsor Dining Court has a very good vegetarian selection and has a halal food section specifically. But as far as allergies and other accommodations go, the cooks will work with you. And usually people I know who have those accommodations say that everyone's super nice and super helpful. I know that someone I know has a peanut butter allergy, and they'll literally bake him a whole batch of cookies as long as he tells them in advance that he's coming, that are free from any contact with peanuts. So don't worry about that if you're worried, if that's something that you have as a need coming in.
And to build off of what Emily was saying, just so everyone is aware, although I said Shreve is really nice because it has study areas, a lot of them, all of the residence halls on campus have some sort of have some sort of study option, whether that's going to be room section off or a whole basement or a whole floor or some sort of lounge. Every residence hall will have its own study area within the residence hall. And then there is, not to mention, the various spaces on campus, Wilmeth Active Learning Center, various libraries like Hicks, that you'll be able to go into 24 hours and study, work on homework, meet with your team if you would like to get out of your residence hall. Welcome back, Carlos. Happy to have you here again. How much do you usually move around to get to your classes as engineering majors? I'll let Gabe answer this question first since he's a freshman. And his classes are a little more spread out than, say, Alana's, who's a senior.
Yeah, so how much do you usually move around to get to your classes as engineering majors? Not too much, actually. The academic campus is pretty centralized. All buildings are relatively close to one another. I think the most that I have walked to a single one of my classes from one academic building to the other would be maybe 7 minutes, 8 minutes. And you usually have that time to go in between class. If you do have classes back to back, you will always have at least a 10-minute block to walk from building to building. And that's usually enough time for people to be able to walk and then maybe get a drink or something. So it's not too bad. I have a couple of my friends that will use electric skateboards or scooters or bikes to get from building to building, which is also very possible. I don't. I just walk, and then when it's cold, I use the bus system, which is pretty good. And then especially when you're going into, I guess, correct me if I'm wrong again, but for the higher level classes, because they grow more specific to a specific engineering discipline, a lot of those classes tend to hover around the same area around campus. So mine, I do have some classes in the electrical engineering building, some classes in the physics building, which are pretty close to one another. I also had a class in the Wilmeth Active Learning Center, and that was maybe, again, like a 5-minute walk from my electrical engineering building class. So it's very easy, even as a freshman.
What about you, Alana? Now that you're a senior, what does your geographical area look like when you're going from class to class?
So for my mechanical engineering classes, it kind of depends on the semester. So this semester I was pretty much all in the mechanical engineering building for those classes. But I will say last semester, because I was in the off semester, which means that there's generally a typical sequence you go through when you're taking classes, at least for mechanical engineering. But my study abroad moved my schedule around a little bit. So I was in like the smaller cohort of students. So I wasn't taking classes at the typical time. So those classes were a little bit more spread out in the Wilmoth Active Learning Center, which is just next door to mechanical engineering, so not very far. And then in the electrical engineering building, which is also right next door, so not all in the same building, but a 5-minute walk, if that. And then I actually had a little bit more spread out of a schedule this semester, but it was by my own choice. So I took a dance class, which was for fun. And the dance building is not anywhere near close to engineering. And I'm in Spanish classes, like I mentioned before. So my Spanish class was a little bit further from engineering, but it was still very easy to make all of my classes within the 10-minute passing period. And I have had experience in the past where I had to run from one side of campus to the other, and it was definitely not a 10-minute walk. And there's a couple ways I dealt with that. So one, when you actually make your schedule, there's a little Roadrunner symbol that'll come up if your buildings are really far apart. And so that'll just let you know, even if you're a freshman and aren't familiar with campus very well, you'll be able to see pretty quickly that maybe you should try to move your schedule around if possible. And if it's not possible, I've always just told my professor, hey, I might be late. I'm coming from this building. And usually they're pretty understanding since they usually only have to move like down the hall from their office to their classroom. They usually don't mind too much because they know you can't really change that. So yeah, that's been my experience. It hasn't been too difficult. And it's kind of nice to get to walk around, stretch your legs in between classes.
Absolutely, especially when it's spring or early August or early from fall, late summer when the weather is really nice. On the other hand, when it is rainy or when it is cold, it's really nice to not have to trek across campus to get into your classes. I would say, in general, though, as a freshman, to summarize but both what Gabe and Alana were saying, as a freshman, your classes might be a little more spread out simply because you're going to be taking classes in a lot of different departments, which are spread out throughout the campus. In general, I would say no longer than the 10 minutes that they give you to go from one class to the other. And then as you progress into senior classes, that area that you are walking across will ultimately decrease more than likely, unless you take a class that is outside of your major or you are have a minor and things of that nature. Can we talk about how the Early Start program works? How will it be affected by coronavirus? Will it be online or on campus? And no problem, Christian, we're happy to answer any questions. So as of right now, Early Start as well as Summer Start will be on campus and in person. Things are still being figured out, and there has not been an announcement that those programs will be online. I would say continue to stay up to date on the COVID-19 response page for Purdue, and I'll link that into the website now. That will give you the best, or I should say the most accurate and most up-to-date website or information regarding Purdue's response to COVID-19. But as of right now, everything is going to be in person. I know there's not a lot of that's not a definitive answer for you. Everyone is still trying to accommodate with this uncertainty. So the best thing for you to do is definitely stay abreast on the information that is posted on the Purdue COVID-19 response page.
And I'll add a little bit to that, and I'll link an Early Start page down here again. But in general, Early Start, you move in 5 weeks before you originally would, and you would take 5 weeks worth of classes. I don't remember the exact credit load. I think it's around 7 credits you're taking during that 5 weeks. And during that time, you have a few different options of what you can take, but it will be things that will actually directly count towards your degree, as well as, I believe, some kind of planning courses to help you get on track throughout the rest of your college career. And housing is included in whatever extra fees you pay for Early Start. And you are in an air-conditioned residence hall during that time, so no worries about that summer heat in Indiana. And from what I remember from the COVID-19 page, they're deciding about whether or not it will continue online by May 15th. So that's about a month from now. So you will have an answer far in advance of when you'd be moving in about whether or not it will be in person or online. So that's just some things to consider.
Thank you, Alana. Moving on to what Enric was saying. My apologies if I'm mispronouncing your name, but you're asking about testing out of physics for FYE. I think I understand what you're asking. So you're saying you did not sign up for the AP Mechanics test, so you can't possibly get the necessary score for the AP test and then transfer in credit that way. I don't know if there is a test out. Are any of you aware of a test out for physics beyond getting the credit transfer from dual enrollment or AP?
I believe you have to take the AP credit or have some dual credit from another university. I don't think we have a test out option for physics specifically.
I think I've heard that for technically for classes, you can always test out by organizing it with the department head and taking their final, but I'm not sure of that. I've never met anyone who's done it, so it's definitely worth looking into. And I'll try to do a little Googling in the next couple minutes and see if I find anything definitive. But yeah, I'm not sure about that, and it's definitely not common.
If you're trying to test out of Physics 172 because you might be struggling a bit with Physics C, I'm like, just as a 2 cents, I also took Physics C. And I would say that Physics 172 so far, because I'm taking that right now, has actually been pretty manageable. The concepts are, I have understood them a lot more than I have the Physics C concepts. So even if you do end up having to take that class, I wouldn't worry. Purdue also does a fantastic job of just being able to give you an insane amount of opportunities to look for or to ask for help, whether that might be through the TAs, to the professor, through some of the organizations on campus that offer free tutoring services. There is a lot. So I wouldn't worry.
Also, if we aren't able to find you a definitive answer, we can have you email us at our future-engineers@purdue.edu email, and we can progress that question upwards. Also, this would be a great question you'll definitely want to bring up with your advisor when you go to STAR, which is the program or time that you would schedule your classes. And you'll definitely want to bring that up with your advisor, telling them the situation, asking them, are there any options? And that will be a great way to gain more information about that process.
I did do a quick check, and it looks like it's most common to do those test outs with chemistry, math classes, and foreign language classes. From what I can tell, it is possible to do it with any other class, but you do have to get your advisor to approve it, which I will say might be tough as an incoming freshman because you'll have to give a pretty good case of why you will be successful even without taking that course in entirety. But I will link that page so that you can kind of see what that process is and bring it up to your advisor whenever you meet with them.
Awesome. So we have a question from Feroz, who's asking about transferring or changing their major from exploratory studies into engineering. So I'm now linking the website, and we call that process. So transferring at Purdue means you are coming from a school outside of Purdue and transferring into Purdue, whereas changing your major has been coined as change of degree objective. So that's the acronym CODO. And that process is very standardized, very simple. A lot of people will end up going through that process. So if you are considering that, know that you won't be the only one. Know that it is standardized, and know that you can find out all the details on this website. In general, you will have to get a 3.2 GPA in 3 categories: a category for math, a category for science, as well as a category for a general class. And that general class could be like writing or speaking. The details and the specific classes that you have to choose from are going to be at that website. But You'll want to get a 3.2 minimum in order to be eligible for the process. And then if space is available, then you'll be able to change your major from exploratory or any other major for anyone else into engineering. So again, to review, it's two-step process. First, get a minimum of 3.2 in those 3 classes. Then if there is space available, you can move into engineering. Arjun, you have another question regarding Shreve and residence halls. I would say, so it looks very far away on campus. Shreve is really no more than 10 minutes, maybe 15 on a cold day. But as someone that has lived in Shreve, going to classes, what would you say the travel time is like?
So if you weren't taking the bus system, the travel time to the general academic campus from Shreve would be hovering around 11, 12 minutes. If you run less, which I have done. But through the bus system, it's a little easier. You just save a bit of energy from not needing to walk, especially if you have some classes that are right by the specific bus route where they stop. It's very easy to get to Shreve and to that specific class in 6 or 7 minutes. So yeah, it's around there.
I'd also like to note that most of our residential campus and academic campus are pretty separate in terms of like, there's not really residence halls that are right in academic campus. There's like a clear road that divides the two. So you'll be going to your classes in academic campus, and then you'll kind of go home at the end of the day or for lunch to residential campus, to where all the dining courts and the gym and all the residence halls are. So most of our residence halls are in that area. Shreve is kind of right in the heart of that. It's really not as far as it looks on the map, I will say. I walk all around campus and residential campus and academic campus all throughout the day when I lived in the residence halls, and it's honestly kind of refreshing to have a little break and walk. I found I've enjoyed my walks throughout the day, but most of the residence halls are in that same area, so it's not like Shreve specifically is really far. They're all kind of compact together like a little neighborhood, and then you go to academic campus for your classes.
There are also a lot. Oh. Yeah, okay. There are also a lot of different ways to get around campus. So if you are worried about having to walk everywhere, it's very common for people to ride bikes, skateboard, or take the bus. So bikes, even if you aren't coming to campus with your own, you can get them for pretty cheap at Walmart or from the Purdue Surplus store, which they'll tell you all about when you go to BGR. And then there's bike racks all over campus, so that's pretty easy to deal with. If you're good on a skateboard, then you can skateboard around. There's also the motorized scooters that are available. I think it's like a couple dollars to ride them. And then I'll link the bus system in here, and pretty much every residence hall has its own bus stop or has a bus stop nearby. And it's free for students to use. They just loop around campus all day pretty much. So no worries about being too far from campus or the cold or anything, because there's plenty of ways to get around that aren't just walking.
Awesome. So there was another question. Oh, Enric, you are so welcome. We appreciate you. Thank you for interacting with us. We're happy to help. Are you sure? You asked the question and we'll answer it just to make sure you are aware and it's a good review for everyone else. So Enric is asking, how does one transfer from first year engineering into their respective engineering major, like mechanical engineering or computer or industrial? And that is going to be through the process of transition to major. There is a way to guarantee your first choice. So essentially students will pick their first and second choice. And in order to guarantee their first choice, they have to be in first year engineering, take the classes once, pass on the first time with a C- or better, have a 3.2 GPA cumulative, and then an engineering GPA of 3.2. I will get the link to, I will provide you the link to go to the website that lists all the ways to guarantee your first choice in detail, so that you don't have to take my word for it, and so that you can also refer back to it later. And then beyond that, some general statistics on how that process works. 92% of students will get their first choice. 60% or so will end up getting that guarantee that I was referring to. So although you don't have to get the guarantee in order to get your first choice, you still have the opportunity of getting your first choice. And then we also like to advise students to reach for as high as GPA as possible, obviously, but also a 3.2 minimum will give you a good opportunity to get your first choice, with the average first-year engineering GPA being 3.23. So those are some numbers and statistics, as well as a broad, high-level overview of what that process is like, as well as what the guarantee would be in order for students to get their first choice. We have around 15 minutes, so continue to ask questions in the chat, as well as if you're more comfortable calling, you're more than welcome to do so, and we'll answer you there. If there's any specific topics and not necessarily a specific question you would like us to talk about, again, you're more than welcome to do that. We're going to continue talking about some hot topics, our experiences, and we'll end off with some advice for everyone. We often get a lot of questions, or this has been a topic in the past, about study abroad. How do you study abroad as an engineer? Can you study abroad and graduate in 4 years? What are the various options? So I will first kind of give a broad overview of study abroad, and then I'll hand it over to Alana, as she's had the opportunity to study abroad multiple times. Before I do that, though, I will answer your question, Enric, about how do you choose our engineering majors. So I will hand it over to Gabe and have him kind of talk about the various options or resources that are available to freshmen in order to explore all 17 different majors.
Yeah, so once again, when I came into Purdue, I wasn't entirely sure what I wanted to major in. I knew that for a fact I wanted to do engineering. I just wasn't sure if that was in the likes of computer engineering, industrial, or mechanical. So being able to go into instead of a direct engineering discipline, as a lot of schools would, wow, sorry, my dog's barking in the background, to be able to go into the first year engineering program, it not only just naturally gives you an extra year to basically just understand what each engineering discipline is and which one better fits your interests, but they also offer a lot of resources such as information sessions between each engineering discipline that you'd go to, and you can go to the ones that are best fit what you're into. So for me, I went to, again, computer, mechanical, and industrial engineering. And for me, wanting to get into more managerial roles when I'm older. I'm sorry, give me 1 second. My dog is being very loud.
No worries. In general, you'll have the opportunity to communicate with faculty. You'll have the opportunity to talk to students within that respective major. And you can even have the opportunity to talk with an advisor within that respective college. So that's a broad overview of the resources. And then I'll hand it over to Gabe to kind of talk about his personal experiences, what he was looking for.
So yeah, I knew that I wanted to do engineering and then get into a lot of managerial roles. And I wanted to try finding ways how to be able to bridge the gap between engineering and business. And industrial engineering does that. And through all those information sessions that they offer through each engineering discipline, I was able to find that out, as well as what the general job prospects are for each discipline, as well as the coursework that you'd be going into, what people tend to minor in, what people's general interests are within that engineering major. So it's a very, very easy way to just, again, be able to better understand what suits your interests.
Awesome.
Was there a second part to that question? I was sorry. I've been
Nope.
very distracted. My dog's loud. Okay. Got it.
No worries, Gabe. So hopefully that answered your question, Enric. Even if you don't know what you want to do right now, you have the flexibility and opportunity to explore all different majors from various sources on your own, as well as through formal methods that Purdue has provided through various avenues. So going back to study abroad can be accomplished three ways, or I should say multiple ways. You can do a full academic school year abroad, you could do a full semester abroad, or you can have the opportunity to do a week over spring break, a Maymester, which is 3 or 4 weeks within the month of May. And then you also have the opportunity to do a study abroad during the summer for 2 or 3 months. So that's a broad overview of what the study abroad process or what the study abroad opportunities are. And now I'm going to hand it over to Alana so she can talk about her personal experience, why she did study abroad, how it fits into her plan of study.
Yeah, so the way you choose to do study abroad really depends on your own personal situation and what you're wanting out of the study abroad. So like Colin said, there's a large range of time slots you can go just in terms of when during the year and for how long. There's also a lot of different things you can study while you're abroad. So as an engineering student, you could go with your own major and knock out a core course. You could go with another engineering major and knock out a tech elective. You could even go with another department entirely and knock out a gen ed or something for your minor. So what I chose to do is I did a program the summer after my freshman year. So it was, how long? 6 weeks, I believe. And this summer with an option to extend for 10 weeks, which a few people chose. And it was a combination of a study abroad and an internship program. So it was through the Spanish department. So I took classes in Spanish language and Latin American studies, which went along with my Spanish minor. And the internship was for the mornings of the month I was there, for a month of the 5 weeks I was there, 6 weeks I was there. And that was an engineering discipline. So that was really cool for me. My boss didn't speak any English, so I got really good at Spanish while I was there and got really good engineering skills hands-on while I was taking Spanish classes towards my minor. The second time I studied abroad was for a whole semester, the spring of my junior year. So a year ago today, I was in China, and that was through the School of Mechanical Engineering. So all I did to do that was I basically just flipped 2 of my semesters. So I took all of the courses that I would have taken senior year in the fall. I took them in the spring of my junior year while I was in China. And that's a really awesome opportunity offered by the mechanical engineering department and by some other programs. So it didn't extend my graduation at all. I got credit for my core courses, and I got to take classes that also introduced me to the culture. So I took Chinese classes and Chinese culture classes. And that's common in a lot of the larger majors. Some smaller majors don't have them, but it also depends on how flexible the advisors are. So I know for mechanical engineering, you can go through sort of one of these predetermined programs like I did to China or to Spain or Colombia, and to a few other places as well. But I had a friend who really wanted to go to Denmark, and that wasn't a pre-approved program. So what he did is he went and he found the classes he wanted to take there. He knew people who had studied abroad there from other majors, and he just brought the course syllabuses to our advisor and said, hey, I think these are equivalent courses. This is a really good school. Can you approve these as courses that will transfer back to Purdue? And they said yes, and he got to go. So that's one way to do it. There's also, if you want to go for even longer than a semester, you can do what's called the GEAR program, where you study for a semester abroad and also you take language courses before you go, and then you stay for a summer after you did your study abroad, and you either do research abroad or an internship abroad. So that's a really good way. If you really want to get into the global workforce, you actually come out with a minor in global engineering studies, and that's a really good way to demonstrate that that's what you're interested in. So since we're nearing the end, I will cap my study abroad talk there, but if you have any more questions, you're always welcome to email us. And move on to the next question, which is how many students qualify for a degree change into mechanical engineering but are denied due to space? I don't have the exact numbers on me right now, but I will say it fluctuates from year to year. Mechanical engineering is one of the few majors that is impacted, meaning there are more people who want to be in it than there's space for, which is unfortunate. Generally, the vast majority of students get into their first choice major, like Colin said, 92%. And if you don't get in the first time, you have 2 options. You can either choose a different major, which might still allow you to do what you want to do. For example, If you want to work on cars, a lot of people think you have to be in mechanical engineering, but you could actually work on cars in industrial engineering, in electrical engineering, computer engineering, or probably even in biomedical engineering doing some safety testing. So that's one example. But if you're really set on mechanical engineering or another one of the very few impacted majors, you can choose to stay in first year engineering for an extra semester or an extra 2 semesters, and you can retake a class or 2 and get your GPA up. And that's also been done before. I actually have a friend who did that and did not extend his graduation at all, because while he retook that class, he also took other classes that were not in mechanical engineering but counted towards his graduation. So that's one way to do it. Yeah. Moving on to the next question. Since some of us are nearly finished, do we think that our classes are mostly aimed at, towards our major or more general? I'll just start since I'm already talking, and then I'll hand it off to Colin. And I would say that my classes were mostly aimed at my major. I think it does depend a little bit on which major you're in, because some have more specific plans of studies than others. That is to say, some will give you more leeway in how much of it is in your specific major or not. So I would say every semester, I think I take about an average of 3 mechanical engineering courses. And I would usually take, let's say, 5 classes a semester. So when I was younger, those classes would be, the non-mechanical engineering classes might be math or physics. And then I pretty much always take a Spanish class for my minor, just because I like to keep my Spanish up. So I'm actually taking Spanish right now, even though I finished my minor, just to keep myself in practice. And then for me personally, in mechanical engineering, you get to take what's called technical electives, which are electives that are still in engineering or science, but outside of your major. So right now I'm actually taking an industrial engineering graduate class because it's very relevant to what I'll be doing in my full-time job. So this is actually the semester I've had the fewest number of mechanical engineering classes, but I'm still taking 2. So yeah, Colin, what about you? How concentrated have your classes been in computer engineering?
Yeah, I would say I'm glad actually you went first, because I actually misunderstood the question. So thank you for that. I would say it's very similar to Alana. Out of 5 classes on average, 3 will definitely be, or the majority at least, 3, 4 if you're taking 6 classes total. But 3 out of 5 classes will be geared towards computer engineering. I may have a class for my minor, or I may have a class that is a technical requirement, but is outside of computer engineering. So it's definitely going to be majority computer or majority your major. You won't have to worry about taking a lot of general classes sophomore through senior year. And if you kind of compare Purdue's plan of study for engineering with, say, another programs, Purdue essentially takes the majority or a lot of those gen ed classes or general classes that you would see throughout 4 years and really just puts them in 1 year. So that's another way to think of Purdue and how they do their engineering program. Since we have 2 minutes, I will answer Manas's question really quickly. If you guys have more questions, feel free to email us at future-engineers@purdue.edu. We can put that in the chat so that you guys can see it and can refer back to it. Also, if you want to talk to us again, you're more than welcome to tune in to the Purdue Engineering Daily Drop-in Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time, as many times as you would like, and ask as many questions as you would like. And then there are also multiple ways that you can interact with more students, get more information, and we've also put that link into the chat for your ability to refer back to. So feel free to interact with us some more, and we look forward to talking with you. Going back to Mana's question about financial aid, refer to that link there. Thank you, Ilana. I would say in my experience, talking to some of my friends that are international students, they do express that there isn't a lot of financial aid that comes, like merit financial aid that comes from Purdue for international students. That's just what I've heard anecdotally. So if you want specifics, definitely refer to that website. But in general, for anyone else, There's a lot more financial aid that is available to students when they are within their school, so sophomore through senior year. Also, there's scholarship opportunities for students to pursue outside of their own major. So whether it's a professional organization or it's a club that they're in, there might be scholarship opportunities there. It's now 5 o'clock. Thank you everyone for tuning in, interacting with us. We appreciate talking to you, and have a great weekend. Stay safe. Bye.